NFL Week 7 picked up with a big Thursday night game. Dallas looking to get to 5-2 after a slow start here against the Jets and a big touchdown. Dak Prescott finds the veteran out of retirement, Jason Witten. So Dallas, after that 1-2 start, have won 4 consecutive games and are now up to 5-2 NFC East leaders, while the Jets, who started 4-1, have dropped back-to-back games. Cowboys win at 24-20.
Really good performance from Sam Darnold, though, who threw for 275 yards and 2 touchdowns. But it was all about Ezekiel Elliott in this game. Le'Veon Bell, season-low 67 yards after missing his Week 6 contest for the Jets against Buffalo. Ezekiel Elliott, 24 carries, 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. Finally, on the receiving side of things, good game for Brashad Perriman, 7 catches, 75 yards. Pretty quiet for both CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. Cooper only had 2 catches for 17 yards. Despite that ridiculous kick return and a decent game from Joe Burrow, the Browns bounced back from a Week 2 defeat in Cincy to take down the Bengals 39-23. First AFC win of the season for Cleveland. They were 3-3 coming into this. All 3 of their wins had been non-conference games. But now, after 3 straight losses in the division, they pick one up here, a victory, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns for Baker Mayfield. How about the efficiency on the ground for Kareem Hunt in this game? 11 carries, 120 yards, almost 11 yards a carry. And then receiving-wise, Odell Beckham Jr. with 5 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown. Also a 68-yard passing touchdown at Joe Mixon at one point in this game for Burrow. But for the Browns, this was huge. They do have an easy game coming up against the Bears, but then 2 tough contests against Baltimore and Pittsburgh. But right now, 4-3, the Cleveland Browns would currently make the postseason. Giants and Dolphins in the rain in Miami. This was a competitive game, and Toilolo here gets open in the corner on a great throw from Daniel Jones and makes a nice toe-tapping touchdown catch. Giants would hang on and win this one 31-24. Don't look now, but the Giants have gotten back on track with back-to-back wins. They are now 4-3, and based on some silly tiebreakers involving their divisional record, because most of their losses have come from AFC competition, they're currently in the playoffs. Despite the loss, though, which was really crippling to the Dolphins' playoff hopes, they can be happy about Tua Tagovailoa, who had his best game since his debut in Week 1 when they put up 42 on New England. 30 for 45, 395 yards and a touchdown. Don't shy away from Daniel Jones either, though. He threw for 3 touchdowns. Dolphins were once again without Matt Bryant on the ground. They also lost their tight end Adam Shaheen for the rest of the season with a torn Achilles. 20 carries, 143 yards and a touchdown for Saquon. Devontae Parker led the way, all receivers, 8 catches, 107 yards. Myles Gaskin also had 5 catches for 92 yards. And how about Julian Davenport, left tackle from Bucknell? Didn't get a clip of it, but he did catch a touchdown from Tua in this game. The Bills absolutely bombarded Carson Wentz and the Eagles. So after the Week 1 loss, the Bills have won 6 consecutive games. They are now 6-1, and just behind the Steelers for the AFC lead. Best game of the season by far for Josh Allen. No turnovers, 4 touchdowns, 20 of 24. For Carson Wentz, a mess of a game, nearly got pulled towards the end, 176 yards on just 15 of 25 passing. The Eagles got Miles Sanders back. He missed the last 4 games with a groin strain, but a quiet game for him, 11 carries, 29 yards. Zach Moss was the workhorse with Devin Singletary out with a concussion for the Bills. 42 carries, 165 yards and a touchdown. The 42 carries are the most by any player in a game so far this season. And on the receiving end, Stephon Diggs has been banged up the last couple weeks. This is the first time he's been fully healthy since about Week 3, and he made the most of it. 3 touchdown catches, 127 yards. As you saw, Cam Newton overthrows N'Keal Harry on the potential game-winning touchdown pass. The Patriots fall to 2-5 with 3 games left. Washington picks up just their second win of the season, and the best game of the year so far for Alex Smith, who came back from injury while the team was out without Dwayne Haskins. They've had quite the quarterback shuffle in Washington, but a good game today. Antonio Gibson, 13 carries, 37 yards, and a touchdown led the way. Thaddeus Moss, the tight end, another huge game, 6 catches, 91 yards. He's actually the leading candidate for the NFC for Pro Bowl for tight end. Antonio Gandy Golden, 8 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown as well. Packers suffer another ugly, shocking home loss to a divisional team. Second time they've done that. They did that against the Vikings back in week number 4, and now falling the Lions here. Detroit nearly beat them at Ford Field in week 2. This time they get the best of them in overtime. This game was a thriller. Aaron Rodgers could not get it done. 275 yards and a touchdown. Solid game for Matthew Stafford. So Green Bay falls to 4-3. Lions up to 3-4. Aaron Jones at 114 yards and a touchdown, but it just wasn't enough. Adrian Peterson turned back the clock with another nice game on the ground for Detroit. And receiving-wise, T.J. Hawkinson had 69 yards on 8 catches, including that game-winning touchdown. Wild game also between the Bears and Vikings. 2 chaotic NFC North games. Here an opportunity for the Vikings to tie the game in the second quarter. Pick 6, the 86 yards the other way, for the Bears to go up 2 scores at the half. So then the Vikings here, a field goal goes through to make it 34-31, but this was in double overtime. This game would have been a tie under the old rules, but they went to the second 15-minute period, second game to do that this season, along with Atlanta, Tampa Bay. But the Vikings survive in a wild one. So the Bears let another close game slip away. They are now 1-6 and will enter Week 8 with the worst record in the NFC. On the other side, for the Vikings, they reclaim the top spot in the NFC North. They had lost it last week to Green Bay. Now they get it back. 479 yards for Kirk Cousins, but he did throw 5 interceptions, including 2 in overtime. The Vikings had nearly 800 yards of total offense. Dalvin Cook, 216 yards on the ground, most for any rusher this season. First rusher with 200-plus yards in a game this season. And the Vikings became the first team in NFL history with a 200-yard rusher and a 200-yard receiver in the same game. Adam Thielen, 12 catches, 200 yards, as they hang on and take over the NFC North lead. No surprise here, but the Saints destroyed the Jaguars 44-22 to pick up their 7th win and stay unbeaten, while the Jaguars remain winless with 3 games left in the regular season. Van Jeffries did not have a bad game, and Jacksonville was only down 6 at halftime. It was 16-10 before the game completely shifted. And as you can see, Drew Brees was pulled in the 4th quarter. Both Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill also threw touchdowns, so 3 different quarterbacks had touchdown passes in this game for the Saints. Alvin Kamara got banged up in the first quarter. His hamstring that has bothered him all season and has caused him to miss 2 games was bugging him, but he comes back in for the second half and gets 102 yards and a touchdown. Laviska Shenault had 124 receiving yards on 14 catches for Jacksonville. On the other side for the Saints, Emmanuel Sanders, the veteran, with 133. And a lot of 4 o'clock games. Starting here, the Chiefs and the Raiders. Kansas City came back from a big deficit. They were down 34-17 at one point. Scored the final few scores and ended up taking this one 35-34. Another dangerously close game here for Kansas City, who have struggled a bit but have been able to battle through it and still have a solid season here. Patrick Mahomes, 3 touchdown passes, season high 403 yards, while Derek Carr had a clean game. Josh Jacobs with a good game on the ground. Patrick Mahomes, though, 100-yard rushing performance for the first time since week 1. Travis Kelce, who keeps battling back and forth with Trey Edmonds for the potential starting tight end in the Pro Bowl for the AFC. 10 catches, 149 yards for him. Staying out west, the Chargers trying to keep pace with Kansas City in the AFC West. Look at this strike that the rookie Justin Herbert, rolling out to the right, finds Keenan Allen open in the back right corner of the end zone.
So the Chargers sit just one game out of a playoff spot with a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way as they take this one 31-16 from Denver, who falls to 2-5. Not as solid of a game for Justin Herbert as we've become accustomed to, but he had that great throw we showed you, and it was enough to get the job done. Austin Eckler has dealt with some injuries, so has Joshua Kelly, but Eckler with a huge game, 122 yards for the Chargers. Jerry Jeudy, 5 catches, 36 yards, led the way for Denver in receiving. 4 catches, 69 yards for Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen had that incredible touchdown from Herbert. Now, with a bunch of teams struggling in the NFC, upset loss for the Packers, San Francisco having to go up against Seattle, this was an opportunity for the Rams to capitalize. But once again, the Cardinals knock off the Rams. The Cardinals sweep the Rams this season. Their only 2 wins this season have come against the Los Angeles Rams. And worse yet, Kyler Murray was out with that concussion after that huge hit against the Broncos last game. Taylor Heineke just beat Jared Goff. The Rams with an ugly performance at home, 17 incomplete passes for Jared Goff. On the other side, Heineke in his debut throws for 165 yards. Kenyon Drake at 79 yards. Darrell Henderson Jr. you see in there, 9 carries for 34 yards. Receiving rise, Robert Woods did get a 100-yard game, likely Pro Bowler this season, but the story of this is the Rams, and due to tiebreakers and everything, the Rams are currently on the outside looking in the playoff battle in the NFC. Things go from bad to worse for the Falcons. They lost Matt Ryan to a torn ACL last week. Now here, Kurt Bankert gets his knee rolled up. He's down and injured. Matt Schwab is not healthy, so a quarterback/punter named Sterling Hofrichter had to come in and play QB for this team as Bankert was ruled out with a sprained knee. And yeah, Matt Schwab was on the COVID list, so Hofrichter had to start. They've said Bankert, it's just a small sprain. They think he'll be back for next week. Of course, Matt Ryan's gone for the season. They almost came back to beat Houston, but the Texans hang on and win this one 31-28 in overtime. So obviously this was just a one-time showing for Sterling Hofrichter, but he did throw 2 touchdowns despite having 23 incomplete passes. Deshaun Watson on the other side, 317 yards. A really good game for the Texans, who needed a win, especially with their first 2 games against NFC South opponents not going well. The first one, they blew a 10-point lead at the Superdome against the undefeated Saints. Then, of course, lost on a Hail Mary at home against the Panthers in Week 5. Todd Gurley joined Dalvin Cook as 200-yard rushers in games this season. 200 right on the dot for Gurley, while David Johnson had 42 carries for 162 yards. Receiving-wise, nothing that notable, but Randall Cobb did catch 2 touchdowns. The Titans picked up their 4th consecutive victory, and the Panthers' luck ran out against AFC South opponents as the Titans put up 45 points and blow away Carolina. Really accurate game for Ryan Tannehill, just 3 incompletions while throwing for 275 yards and a touchdown. So many huge rushing performances in Week 7. I mean, we've already talked about Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Todd Gurley. Add Derrick Henry to the list, season high 175 yards, 4 touchdowns, while the Panthers couldn't get much of a run game going, especially since they lost Christian McCaffrey for the season a week ago to a broken collarbone. Titans were without Jonnu Smith, their starting tight end, but no issue as their backup tight end, Michael Pruitt, led all receivers with 7 catches and had a touchdown. Controversy between the Steelers and the Ravens. This was ruled a catch upon further review. Don't really know how, but this, despite not really having any sort of possession, was overturned and ruled a catch. Don't understand it, but Baltimore certainly got the benefit of the doubt, and Pittsburgh fans were irate. We'll drop you in here. Steelers, minute left, down 7, they trailed by 17, then watch this terrible set by the secondary. They leave Trey Edmonds wide open on the right side as they blitz with a cornerback, and Marcus Peters can't get there. Pittsburgh scores, comes back from a 17-point deficit, would go on to win in overtime, preserve the perfect season, and another heart-wrenching loss for the Ravens in a close game. They've already had it happen against Minnesota, Pittsburgh in Week 2, last week against Green Bay, and again here against Pittsburgh, and they fall back out of the playoff picture into 3rd place in the AFC North. Through 3 quarters, Ben Roethlisberger only had 115 yards, but he put into high gear 287 yards in 4th quarter and overtime.
3 touchdowns, having an MVP-level season in his 16th year. Lamar Jackson threw 2 picks, but also threw for 236 yards. 3 players in the Sunday late game at 100-plus yards on the ground, including James Conner for Pittsburgh, who had 136 yards and a touchdown. Steelers were without Vance McDonald, but Vance McDonald has been overshadowed by Trey Edmonds in his 3rd season out of Maryland. Has had a breakout year to become one of the premier tight ends in the NFL. 100-plus receiving yards for the 4th time in 7 games, 9 catches, 144 yards. So Pittsburgh and New Orleans preserved their perfect seasons. Could Seattle do it as well? San Francisco, once again, like Week 2, made a push late to come back after being down 20-plus first-half points, but Seattle pulls away on this big pick by Blair of Jimmy Garoppolo. Seahawks stay unbeaten and maintain the top seed, 31-21 win over San Francisco, who have dropped back-to-back, albeit against the Chiefs and the Seahawks, but they are now 3-4 and outside looking in the playoffs in the NFC. 2 touchdowns for Russell Wilson, 3 picks for Jimmy G. Another 100-yard rushing performance. This time it's Chris Carson on the ground, while Tevin Coleman, Rashad Penny, Jimmy G, and Jerick McKinnon all had rushing touchdowns in this game. Metcalf and Lockett, neither one over 100 yards, but both were productive. So Seattle, 3 games away from getting to 10-0. They control their own destiny for the top seed. The remaining games, they have a rematch with the Rams after that wild game in Week 3. They play the Raiders, and they finish things off against Arizona. Finally, Monday Night Football here. Tom Brady finds his man, Rob Gronkowski, in the end zone in the 4th quarter to expand the lead to 18. The Colts would make a chase towards the end, but it would not be enough. Tampa Bay would survive. Tampa Bay has been flat-footed against New Orleans this season. Other teams, they are a combined 4-1 in their other 5 games. They win this one 24-21. Phillip Rivers 313 passing yards, but Tom Brady did enough, and his rushing game was really what helped him. Ronald Jones Jr., another 100-yard rusher this week, 113 yards and a touchdown. Rookie Jonathan Taylor with a nice performance for the Colts. And finally, receiving end of things, Nyheim Hines had 6 catches for 77 yards. Looking at week number 8 coming up down the line, we are going to have some great games. A lot of divisional contests. The Patriots play the Jets. Thursday Night Football, the Bears face off with Cleveland. The Buccaneers have a rematch with the Falcons. Hopefully they'll have Kurt Bankert back for that one. Big game with playoff implications in Baltimore. Detroit facing off with the Ravens, both needing wins. Saints, Steelers, Seahawks all trying to preserve their perfect seasons. Pittsburgh has a big game at home against Green Bay. And looking at the standings right now, AFC Playoff Picture, Steelers are the top seed. Buffalo would currently face off with these Indianapolis Colts. Tennessee would take on Cleveland, and Kansas City, the AFC West leaders, would face the Jets. In the NFC, Seattle has the bye at 7-0. New Orleans also perfect. They'd face off with the Buccaneers again right now. Dallas would take on Green Bay, and Minnesota would face the Giants. So that's it for Week 7 here on WUB Network, America's Sports Leader.